going to go ahead and call us to order and declare that we have a quorum present of 7 members. Item C1, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to boundary adjustment recommendations. Dr. Ely.
Mr. President, members of the board, we have Mr. Martindale here again to kind of share with us some information that was asked for last time as a kind of a precursor to the board's discussion about, the next steps that we have here as a group along this process. Michael, start talking a little bit about clarification regarding grandfathering, and then we'll go ahead and lead into that sharing of the information. So with that, it's Mr. Martindale, Deputy Superintendent and Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Dr. Ely. Here we go. As Dr. Ely mentioned, I have just a brief presentation to touch on some information requested from the previous time we met last week, and then can step aside and allow conversation at board's discretion. Just one point, I think some questions since the last time we met and some concern with our current high school students. Just wanted to mention a point of clarification regarding the grandfathering. This is on our website as well. Mr. Glenwickle has captured this on our website. But our current recommendation would be to allow all current high school students to remain at the high school to which they are zoned now. The new attendance zones will not take effect until 2019-2020 school year, meaning our current 9th and 10th graders would have the opportunity to grandfather when they are juniors and seniors. So just a clarifying point on that, I think there were some a little concern from some of our existing high school students. So I want to make sure to touch on that and bring clarification to that point.
Anybody have any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Data request. You saw a chart like this at our previous presentation for kind of growth neighborhoods that are currently zoned to consolidated. We tried to pull that together, that information together for you for neighborhoods or more dense or fast growth neighborhoods associated with College Station High School's current zone. So you can see those numbers that are projected out included in Templeton's demographics projections in their data as associated with the different neighborhoods currently in their zone. Of course, the first column, Nantucket, Indian Lakes. West side, that's capturing Saddle Creek, Duck Cave in that area. There's a map immediately after this, so I'll kind of show you from a visual perspective what these different areas are. East of Wellborn Road, which is Sendera, Tuscany Trace, Hidden Springs, Bentwood, that particular area. Of course, Creek Meadows, Castlegate 1 and Castlegate 2. Included with Castlegate 2 is Brewster's Point. That is just there across the street, basically from Spring Creek Elementary. And, of course, Midtown. So I'll kind of walk you through on a map. Midtown, that is Dove Crossing along with the Springbrook areas as well as Bridal Gate. Okay. And again, I'll go to the map. I may kind of flip back and forth. I didn't want to do it before I explained it. Now,
Brewster's not on the ground yet, right?
No. Oh, that 3 houses?
They have a couple of houses under construction now, yes. So really, Michael, I would anticipate a vast majority of that number is Castlegate 2. So here's the map that kind of highlighted those particular areas that we just spoke to. So obviously the southwest corner is the west side that we spoke of. This brown area, this is what we refer to of east of Wellborn Road. So I'm going to flip back real quick. This would be this particular area. We've discussed west side. It's here. This is the east of Wellborn Road again. Tuscany Trace, Bentwood area, Hidden Springs, Sendera. You can see this is Wellborn Middle School, Pecan Trail, Greens Prairie, all clustered here. The gray area is Creek Meadows. All the colors kind of look the same, so I apologize. Follow the cursor. Uh, uh, Spring Creek Elementary's here, so this is Castlegate 2 and Brewster's Point in this area. Kind of the green area, and this particular star is Forest Ridge, so this is Castlegate 1. Right in this area. And then, of course, here's your Indian Lakes, Nantucket area. And here's your, what we referenced as Midtown. So this is Dove Crossing, Bridal Gate, Springbrook area. So those are the particular locations on the map that we referenced in the chart for you. Just makes it a little bit easier to connect exactly what areas we're speaking of.
And the red star in the lilac zone and that one is
This one,
Spring Creek. Okay.
The red are elementary schools.
Okay.
So the blues are the high schools, so College Station High School. And again, reference on this one, the yellow, that's just property we own. There's not a facility there yet, so don't. Okay. One thing mentioned in our last meeting also was a consideration of drawing an east-west boundary and dividing the district into north-south. So we ran a couple of projections on that just to give you an idea of what that would look like. The first one, Rock Prairie Road, simply took Rock Prairie Road to divide north and south. So you can see Rock Prairie Road running here. This is College Station Middle School and Rock Prairie Elementary School. It crosses over. This is where New River Bend Elementary School will be out here. So using Rock Prairie Road as your divider for north and south. The blue, of course, is A&M Consolidated Zone. The green, College Station. So just as a point to give this a try. And the numbers associated with that are according on the next page. Your difference in your free and reduced lunch percentage pretty much kills this one in the water based on FC local because of the discrepancy between those two numbers, the difference, not comparable whatsoever. After seeing that, I really, quite honestly, with the board, I didn't bother trying to project bond for high school 3 or a high school edition because I just thought that one was a killer. So after that particular option, tried moving the line a little farther south. So this is Fitch, runs just along the west side of 6. Again, this is your Tower Point development, Spring Creek development, Springbrook, Shenandoah, Bridal Gate, those particular areas. Here's Barron Road, so you get your reference point. Runs right in front of College Station High School. So if you move this any farther south, College Station High School would be in A&M Consolidated Zone. That makes sense. Okay. So the result of those particular numbers was still tracking in a not positive manner as far as our free and reduced percentages. Your enrollment projections are a little much cleaner than the first option, but your comparability is still way out of line as far as what we're trying to achieve with FC Local.
I think it's worth mentioning that I don't think there's anybody at this table who thought this was a good option, but we get asked about this so frequently. Why don't we just split things north and south? That you see essentially what you have to do to make the population numbers look even halfway reasonable. And I would bargain to say if you didn't dip down as far as you did on the east side, the truth is if you'd drawn just a true east-west line divided north and south, that line would have been below College Station High School. But anyway, still, so for people that were asking, then this is what it turns out like. And I don't think any of us think that's a good idea, but it's worth having just so that people can see the outcome of what happens when we do that.
You would have to capture College Station High School and consolidate zone, or basically make a circle around it.
Thank you.
Now, I can briefly go through the 4 existing options that we've discussed several times, or I can cease my part of my formal presentation at this point in time and freedom to the board for conversation. I'd be happy to touch on them quickly, or I can, if the board so chooses, or I can stop my comments here.
Well, let me ask the board. I think it might be a good idea to try to talk about a few things and see if we can't get the discussion at least narrowed a little bit. Does anybody need a better understanding of options 1, 2A, 2B, and 3? We have it there in front of us, and we can go through it again. And let me just kind of tell you what I'm thinking. I came in with a list of things I wanted to see last time prior to our discussion, but after our discussion and thinking about it since our last meeting, it seems to me that a lot of the stuff I asked for, we don't need to spend a bunch of time on it, I think. At least that was my read around the table. I'm happy to do that and go through all of that, but I'll give you an example. Like I had a few variants off option 1. Well, it seemed to me that people identified some problems they had with option 1. Well, those variants would have some of those same problems. And if that's not the direction that as a group we think we're going, well, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time wading through those. And I think it might be a good idea for us to talk about some of these major themes we have before us. Drive times, adding to drive times. Do we move walkers and bikers and put them on a bus? Do we rely on future development? I mean, these are the things that differentiate these options, and I think we need to have some discussion about the theory, or I guess those broad themes, if you will, to kind of help figure out where we're going to go. I'd welcome y'all's thoughts on that.
So I'm still learning, so I don't think I was very clear.
So am I.
I actually did want to see some of these other areas plugged into a map and to see those numbers, to see what it would look like. I did actually want some other alternative maps to consider.
Well, and I think they may have some of those. I mean, I know they did some of that work, and in getting ready for the meeting, we were trying to talk through how do we go about this, and the thing came up about, well, the things I asked for. I mean, we can definitely go through them if you want, but I mean, at the end of the day, if it's not something we're interested in, I mean, the variants on option 1, where we take Saddle Creek, Duck Haven, Indian Lakes, Nantucket, and then deal with the issue of perception of what we're creating in terms of, I forget the terminology that was used, higher.
That is excellent.
That
Please forget that.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
Let's move on.
But it seems to me there are some of those types of issues that if we can start saying, well, we favor a general approach more. And let me give you an example. I mean, they have 4 different approaches in those options. One goes down both the east side and the west side and leaves the middle intact. It preserves the walkability, bikeability of that central section. 2A and 2B are, in my mind at least, you go down either the east side or the west side and then pick up people elsewhere to get the numbers that we need to move to get our capacity right so that we can utilize what we have before we go to a bond. And then the third one is you move a bunch of walkers and bikers and rely on future development. And I think it's good for us to talk about those approaches and figure out, okay, where do we think? I mean, I can tell you my thinking shifted after hearing our discussion last time and participating in it. a little bit on where I was and kind of, I mean, I came in thinking, well, I mean, it's no secret. You look at the questions I had, I thought one did the best job on the numbers. It didn't really occur to me, the issue that Mr. Nugent raised, but when you look at it, I see that. And perception of our schools is an issue. And we don't want to, in essence, if we feel like there is a negative perception we need to correct, well, we don't need to go so far necessarily that it swings it the other way. And I'm sensitive to that. So that causes me some angst. I mean, I look at it, okay, that's option one. If you don't like that approach, okay, what's next? Well, I look at option three, it's the reverse side of that coin, I think. And I mean, that one, the thing that number one gives me heartache before you even get to that is the number of walkers and bikers that are moved under that plan. I mean, that just doesn't sit well with me. So then my thinking naturally shifted more to the 2A, 2B approach, and particularly some of the ideas that Dr. Wesson, so I guess that's why they gave him a PhD.
This is not why.
So I mean, that's the discussion I think we need to have and figure out where we are as a group. And I'm not talking about making a decision or hard and fast eliminating things. I'm talking about guiding a discussion and seeing if we can't make our sausage. I've seen that show up a few times lately, but it does seem appropriate. And kind of get there to where it's something that we all kind of feel good about. And I think right now, when you have all four directions in front of us, we run the risk of not really getting focused and moving forward. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Anybody have thoughts on a direction that they think that we should take a discussion in, or do you all just want to proceed with all four and kind of hit them scattershot?
Can we start eliminating?
I mean, yeah, at this point, I think we can, my preference would be focus. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily eliminate, because you can get down a path a certain length and then say, we can't get there this way. We got to go back and go a different direction. And I mean, I think if you start eliminating things, that creates a perception that is not available to us.
It may have been a harsh word.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I mean, I think I said in the last meeting, I think we've got to have a conversation about walkability versus longer driving times for people who are already in buses or cars in order to get where they're going. I just fundamentally have a really hard time rezoning people who are within walking distance of their high school that we are currently not providing buses to. And I'm not saying that there's not an exception to that, but just broadly speaking, I don't know. I mean, there's just something inside me that says that's just not a good call. Because starting to provide bus service to areas of the city that we're not already doing that to. And I have no doubt that not every single kid in those areas walks and bikes to school. I mean, I don't think any of us are under that perception. Right. But the truth is, they're on their own. They're in their own accord to get to school. And we don't have to worry about them. So whether they're walking or busing or taking a car, or doing biking, whatever it is, not busing, biking, they're close enough to where we consider them neighborhood communities around the high school.
So another way I see that is that it's easier when you're closer, even if they don't walk. So the walkability section, even if they don't walk, it's a lot easier for them to ask for a ride from somebody because it is in such close proximity to that school. It's only half of a mile or a mile out of someone's way, maybe. So even if they're not walking, I think it's easier to get help which, I mean, I could go into I do have a spiel. I'm waiting for the right time.
Good luck finding that right time.
I know.
We all can empathize.
So I mean, I would just say fundamentally, I kind of lean against that. This doesn't mean I can't be talked into something for the right reasons, but like it's fundamentally why parts of 2A, obviously, I said this at the last one and was quoted about spitting in the paper. That was nice. One thing I got quoted on, that was cool. I think that long, thin rectangle is obviously not what any of us would pick. Can we move that rectangle to where it looks a little bit different and stay in Midtown and make that option better? I think the answer to that is yes. Option 2B still has that notch up there of folks who are still pretty close. Obviously, option 3 it's predominantly made of people, and I think it's the worst for us from a numbers perspective as we start to look at that option as well. So. Carol, go ahead.
Well, I think I said last time, I struggle moving kids. I can walk and bike. That clearly, we've gotten a lot of email from that neighborhood too, saying that there are reasons that people choose to live there for that very reason. And it is tough, even though, would we provide transportation, but then that's an added cost to the district in that respect too, that people, I mean, it's that too. When you ask us to focus on some of those things, I'm a typical female in the sense that, I don't put things in boxes. I've tried to look at this from so many different directions. And, I look at all these email and everybody, for whatever reason, a lot of them have a lot of valid points. And, I've come down to the fact that we have to sit here knowing everything that we know and that you've provided for us. And we have a problem now. I think there are a lot of people who would like to see us move this out a bit. And I hope that we can all agree as a board that we have to take care of this issue now. We have to move real kids. That's what makes this so hard for all of us is we understand. I don't think there's anyone around this table who doesn't understand that we are affecting families and kids. But something that, as I was talking with someone yesterday, and I truly believe this, is that kids are resilient. And, sometimes we as adults try to put ourselves in those places. And the fact of the matter is, too, as we go through that I was looking at this as any option could be wrong, and I was told that every option could be right. And I'd like for all of us to kind of look at that because there isn't a bad place to move, and we live in this small community, and we all are friends and neighbors. And a lot of these kids, once they get their driver's license anyway, they're off and gone and seeing other kids. They're across the district. I hate to tell you this, they commingle across the district especially at 16. I've watched it before. So that takes away, I know I'm getting on the emotional side of this, but I do understand the emotional side, and I want the community to understand that we do too. But you have to start looking at what you're saying, like focusing in. And so one of those things is that it is tough for me to move the walkers and the riders, if that's where we're going to focus this particular conversation is. It just doesn't, I could be talked out of it as well, but deep down inside, that's the number one thing I've concluded in all my thinking and staying up at night, that I struggle to move those walkers and riders. So then if we have that, then where does that now lead us for you as the district and maybe some of these other things that you've been looking at, if we take those walkers and riders out, then, what's the next direction if we all were to agree on that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it might be good to let other people go around and express their thoughts on moving walkers and riders versus adding to drive times and kind of get a feel for where we all are as a group. Because I think that's one of the determining issues for us and how we start looking to find the numbers.
I would agree with Michael and Carol as far as moving the walkers and bike riders. I would have to be, I'd have to have a pretty good argument to convince me to do that. I would like to, I have a hard time looking at those plans at all. If there's a way we could modify those plans so that walkers and bike riders didn't have to move, then I would be open to that, but I'm having a real hard time with that concept.
I think I would agree with that also, especially the ones closer to the College Station High School. I think I also struggle with busing kids from the north to the south and then busing kids from the south to the north for the fact that, a lot of people choose their house, for the location of schools and also for their work. And so I think the part that I struggle with is extracurricular activities. How do some of these kids get home if they're spending that much time, before and after school? I hear the thing that it's only 2 miles. I think one of the things that we need to look at is, I'm not that concerned in miles. I'm looking at minutes and distance. I think we all can find that 2 miles, if that's 20 minutes, that's something that we need to think about. But I think I agree with what everybody said.
Yeah, and I think that is a very real issue, and I can relate. I mean, I've got kids that are involved in everything under the sun and a wide range of things, and they're up there a lot. And it is a real issue. And kids who are there after school, it requires transportation needs. I mean, that is very real and something we're going to be mindful of. The thing to keep in mind, I think, I look at the maps and I struggle with busing kids south and then turning around and busing other kids north. That's why one of the things I asked about last time is, what does it look like if we don't bus those kids south? And they told us it keeps us at a double-digit difference. I mean, the reason we're doing it is because we haven't found another way to accomplish our set-out goal for comparability. And I think that's it. And you can debate the merits of that, hopefully not here, because that's already been settled. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it, bottom line. So once you're at that point, you look at what do we do? And that's why I mentioned that in previous time, we've already, in essence, picked the low-hanging fruit. So now we're talking about moving people who either walk or bike, or we're adding to drive time. I mean, that's it. When you look at those maps, that's everybody. Those are our choices. And that's why I think it's good to have this discussion and a recognition of that, because it's a real issue, and we all, I think, know it.
Mr. Harris, it would be possible for us to look at some other neighborhoods in the north part of College Station that are primarily multifamily housing, as opposed to the ones that are on Anderson Street, right off of Anderson Street. They're not contiguous to the current group of kids that we're moving there, but if the board would like us to, we could bring back some other options that look at other folks who may already be on a bus in the northern part. It's just be getting some different neighborhoods, if that's your will for us to bring back other options for that.
I guess restate your statement.
So if we're talking
Or
under the
you're talking about a different group of yellow in the north,
Yes.
as opposed to what we have projected up until this point.
Well, different than what we have now, it's smaller numbers, and they're not contiguous to the current area. So they're a little bit farther away, even a little bit farther north. But the situation with these neighborhoods, those kids are already getting on a bus to go to high school. We can look at those if you'd like for us to.
Right, but even the
Crossing
Anderson Street that you guys have recommended for option 1, 2A, and 2B, they're already they're on a bus right now, or they're not on a bus right now?
I don't want to misspeak, Mr. Silva.
High school, the ones that would be rezoned the Anderson Street between George Bush and 2818. No, we are not. Maybe, and Caleb, correct me, maybe a kid or two at the farther end of George Bush, or right at George Bush, correct?
Okay.
So primarily, no, Mr.
Okay.
Wesson.
So anyway, I just want to throw that out if you want to give us that direction.
I mean, given that we haven't looked at that, so here's a question. I've always heard this, and maybe you can tell me whether you know or we don't know whether this is true or not. That broadly speaking, when we put kids in multifamily housing, which are what a lot of what we would qualify as our low SES students, their attendance gets better on the whole when they are riding a bus as opposed to when they are not riding a bus. Do we know that? Or that's what I've always heard from back when we rezoned in 2010, that it's actually an advantage to having low SES neighborhoods be bused.
They're oftentimes looked on as a positive by families in that neighborhood for whom transportation is an issue. So to have guaranteed transportation both to and from school is oftentimes looked upon as a positive. Those neighborhoods we see even in this area who are walkers, to say A&M Consolidated, is a little bit more problematic in inclement weather when that's their only way to school.
Right. Okay.
I was going to tell you, when we were at Lincoln Center, you were probably there in the, one of those rezonings early on. We had a mother that it just never occurred to me that they would want to be on a bus because they had no way to get there if it was raining or,
Right.
And they knew, and in some cases it was a safety issue, and they knew they got on that bus, and they knew that they didn't have to worry about them once they were on that bus. If they walked in some of those particular areas, they didn't know if they got to school. And so there was that issue as well. So, it's just trying to consider all those different needs from all families. We often hear from some groups more than others, but they have real needs, and mothers have real wants for their kids too. So something to consider in some of those multi-housing districts when people get upset that we're busing across town. Sometimes their mothers would prefer it, or their dads would prefer that, or their families that are taking care of them.
I think absolutely. But let me put an asterisk by it and say I think we're going to rely a lot on you all as the professionals in what you think the best answer there is.
Fundamentally, whether it's that neighborhood or a different neighborhood, the numbers have to ballpark come out the same. So if you think there's a different area that makes more sense from a busing perspective where those kids are already bused, I think we're open to that, regardless of whether it's perfectly contiguous to that, whatever we're going to call that shape right there.
Okay.
I think it's important to note too, and to reiterate that you all know your students in that capacity.
Agreed.
I just feel like you would know where that would fall more than we would, and we would rely heavily on your thoughts on that.
Yes, ma'am.
We heard from you on walkers, bikers.
We heard last week from me. I will share again. No, I mean,
We had.
Again, it doesn't surprise me that no one up here thinks it's a good idea to move people who can walk to school. And I agree with that. Um, I think a lot of the people who spoke at the forum, a lot of the people who've written emails have made really good cases. And again, there's just kind of the common sense of it as well. But with that said, Mr. Harris, I think you said our choices are we're looking at walkability and we're looking at longer drive times. Well, either one of those sound good? I mean, and I know I said it last week. It's there's something to really not like in all four options, and I think it's longer drive times and it's the walkers and the bike riders, or they're on a longboard. And I know, hey, there was one. There was one.
My son.
I saw one today. What I keep having to remind myself is that we're here for a reason, and the reason's not because we want to be. None of us want to be, but we see the issue in comparability. We see the issue really in capacity, and I think we all knew that the answer was going to be tough, whatever it is, and probably none of us are going to like it because it's going to involve moving kids, and no one wants to do that. Now, and I know it's been thrown out. Well, we can add on to CSHS. We can build a third high school. As stewards of our tax money, I have a very difficult time asking the citizens of College Station to pony up tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars when we have room in an existing facility. And so to me, I mean, that's obviously something we could have done, or maybe we still could, but I think that's the poorest choice there is. And so I haven't found a good solution.
Well, and given our current financial situation in Texas, I'm not sure that we could afford adding on and building a third high school at this point.
I'd like to, I know, since we're just letting things out, I hope we get to the point after this is done that we channel a lot of the frustration and energy, if you want to call it that, that's in the community, and bring that to Austin and let them know, I don't think there's a lot of people realize is that next year that the city of College Station ISD is going to be supporting 100% of the education for our kids. I think, once we get this tackled, I think that needs to be, put some of that energy going to Austin.
And I'm telling you, Austin wouldn't know what to do with all this. They wouldn't. And you know what? People do. I'm going to ride that pony right there because that is a great point. We need our community to be just as upset, if not more upset, about what's going on in Austin and what it's doing to your tax dollars as you are about this rezoning. Because I promise you, it's a lot worse. This is a good problem to have. It's an unfortunate one, but it's a good problem to have. And the problem that we got there is not a good problem. So we need to refocus that.
Okay, I think, and it's not any of this is really a hard and fast black and white issue. There's more kind of gray. It's going to be a balancing act, I think, as we start looking at weighing, well, what about this area as opposed to that one? It's not like there's a bell that's going to ding and say, yep, that's the right answer. It's just not going to work that way. So, but it is good to know where everybody kind of feels as we start weighing relative areas as we're trying to find groups that we can use in various scenarios. I think another thing that's good for us to talk about is one of the themes that came out in the feedback is reliance on future development as opposed to actually moving kids now. Anybody want to start with that? You want me to jump in?
Well, I don't know why I'm always going first. It's a giant mistake on my part. You know, I think even since our last rezoning, I'm going to put it on Mr. Schaefer, was I know a big proponent of using upcoming communities or future development to help balance out the growth issues that we have between the two high schools. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think us locating, and we got some good information on that last time, where those areas are, and potentially making sure, whichever option we choose, that maybe not all, but a good portion of those growth areas are zoned for consol, and people will know when they move into those areas that that's where they get to go. I guess I would just remind us as well, in saying that I think that is a great idea. I think relying on that for our numbers is a poor choice, in that I kind of feel that's kind of where we got hung up the last time. And this notion of a certain number of kids going to be somewhere that in the future that is not guaranteed is not going to solve our problem. So whereas I agree wholeheartedly that we should be thinking long and hard, whether it's Brewster or Margraves or whatever the other big areas are that we think are going to have the biggest growth, should certainly be a part of the discussion, and where those places get zoned should be taken very much into account. Unfortunately, I don't think we're anywhere near a point at this point with growth where we can just say, okay, well, let's just pick out all the future development areas and zone them to consol, and the problem's going to take care of itself. I think we found out that didn't work last time.
Well, and we have a problem now.
We have a problem now, regardless. Yes,
Yeah.
I would agree. So, you know, if like any future option that we look at, we should be thinking about what are our big growth areas and where can they go, and where in this whatever modification of zones we look at, where are those neighborhoods going, and is it worth moving some of them to help the numbers in the long run?
Okay, I'm gonna get going on my big spiel. I don't know if the timing's right, but that's okay. So this was one of the themes that I found, was this including future development. Let me start from the beginning though. So in order to kind of take the emotion out of it for me, because I tend to get emotional with this kind of stuff, as do most people, because we are dealing with kids and moving kids. So to take the emotion out of it, I started writing down themes that were reoccurring in the feedback. And so I reread some of the feedback once I started doing this, and I went over my notes from the public forum as well, and I started writing these down and started keeping keeping track of how many times these themes kept being mentioned, right? And the biggest one that I saw was a sense of community. So I'm kind of bouncing around here, right? The biggest one that I saw in the actual words, sense of community. Maybe I should back up again. I'm saying all of this because I would like for us to consider, I mean, we have the priorities set by the school district and FC local, but I also do want to make sure that we are somehow marrying the feedback and the wishes of the community. And I think we can do this, okay? I mean, bouncing around here. But sense of community seemed to be the biggest one, and that was really important to a lot of people from all different areas in the district, right? And we can go into exactly what that means if we want and figure out what we think that means. And part of that was remaining with friends, right? And then the other thing was walkability. I did think that that was huge. And I separated walkability from another one that was the commute and bus routes. I did consider those like two different themes that were very present. So walkability was very important to people, and then commute and bus routes and bus times was also very important to people. And then SES balance was up there really high as well. We had a lot of community members emailing us, reminding us that they too find that very important or think that's very important. And they are part of this community. And then the other one was what you just mentioned, was this almost a debate on the future development, right? I mean, I felt like it was really split, and my little hashtags showed me that it was pretty split. You know, half of the community thought that that including future development was not a good thing. You know, they thought that that was a bad idea. And the other half thought it was a great thing. And I had this other one, the fewer disruption, less disruption. I had that as a theme for a while, but then I just brought that into including future development, you know, has future, you know, disrupts fewer families. So I put all that together. But I did think I believe that was really, I mean, it was split between our community. I mean, that's what I saw. And then some other themes worth mentioning was more extensive grandfathering, improving middle school splits, distance between schools, meaning the distance between schools, what I pulled from that, it was only a couple emails, but reminding us of like this triangle, right? Like their drive times and commutes and activity involvement between elementary, 5 through 8, and high school, and kind of reminding us to remember to look at this triangle for everyone. And I mean, that's what I got. I'm sure, I mean, I'm not a computer, so I was trying really hard to figure out what our community was really asking for and what they were saying, and hoping, and I know we can't make everyone happy, but I'm really hoping that we can maybe use that to guide and pull that in. And I'm rambling now.
No.
What do you think?
No, I don't
What
think
do y'all
you're
think?
rambling. I mean, it's clear we got a whole lot of emails, and I can say that I read every single one. And even though obviously a bunch of them are repetitive on all of these different things, right? I mean, the problem is that there's tension between some of that, right? I mean, the people who say walkability is good are also, you know, goes against the fact of commuting and busing, right? Which by reducing one, it increases the other, and we're always going to have that battle. You know, the future development split was not that they didn't necessarily like future development, is that they didn't want us to rely on future development in terms of doing things. So, but there were definitely some people who were like, utilize this to minimize the disruption, and then the other half were, don't utilize that, or we'll be back where we were. We'll be right back here. So, but both of those certainly were two big parts that. And I think that's the hardest thing for us, is this notion of a sense of, it's what we all want, is to preserve that sense of community, and it's also what makes boundary adjustment the most difficult thing I think that we have to do in a lot of respects. But the fact that both high schools have a strong sense of community, at the end of the day, lessons, I mean, I've got an enormous amount of angst over this already, but it lessens my angst knowing at the end of the day, wherever kids go, they're going to go to a school that has a strong sense of community and has a strong culture. It's just two different really good high schools.
Go ahead.
Well, I just was wondering if we start to look at some things, and particularly this, if we take the walkers out, are you at a point where we could look at something different? Or would we have to do something next time?
So
for
we
that?
have some stuff that we could look at. We have the various things that were asked for at our meeting last week. The administration also has been thinking about this and looking at the first four options. You'll recall that last week we talked about the notion of perhaps having a few more students go from net students is what we're talking about, from College Station High School to Consol, because of the what we have seen in the past in regards to the projections that we've made and the reality on the ground. And so that was, as we went back and looked through that kind of filter, as we looked at those first four options that we brought before you, probably we needed to do something to increase the number slightly of kids going to A&M Consolidated High School. Second thing, in looking at that, we didn't necessarily feel that one of those four options was necessarily one of the best options. So, could we take some of the what we saw in those options and maybe combine them? And so we actually put another option together that was a combination of two of them. And we're calling it 3B. It's a combination of option 3 and 2A that we saw from last week. And if you want to go ahead and pass those around, and we'll put it up here on the screen. If you would like, we could take you through that, and then maybe some of the other options that were talked about here may kind of fit the bill with that as well as something to discuss, if that's okay. So.
I think that's fine. Everybody good?
Sure. I have the various options in presentation, so I'll walk through those with the board real quickly. Of course, you have a paper copy of this. Option 3B, it does take the previous option 3 and make some adjustments to it. That's what the arrows are. I tried to highlight where the adjustments occurred just to draw them to your attention. What it did do to the existing option 3 was it extended this Anderson Street area south again down to 2818s. In option 3, it ended at Southwest Parkway. So there was that was an adjustment to option 3 in this particular map. Also, as far as Midtown, it did several different things. It did move that boundary west to Victoria. It captures the other side of Cypress Grove, the west side of Cypress Grove and Creekview. If you'll recall, previously that started on the east side, and it just started there at Dove Crossing. It also eliminated, if you remember, this used to work its way down Highway 6 through the Tower Point area, the Spring Creek development, Shenandoah, all of that, all the way to Fitch, if you recall. Remember on 3, this was all blue down to here, and it captured the Margraves development. So this includes Indian Lakes as well. So those are the big changes from the previous option 3. Includes Indian Lakes, makes some shifts in Midtown, and increased what we were doing with Anderson Street from previously. Okay, that's just to highlight the differences from option 3. Here are the numbers that resulted from those projections when we ran this through the software. Your comparability is at 3.3% difference. We would be projecting needing to go to bond for the addition to College Station High School fall of 21, which I think is comparable to the previous options. Take 3 years to have that on the ground in use. That's why you see the star in the fall of 24. And then we'd be looking at discussion projection going to bond for high school 3 in fall of 24, which I think that shifts us 1 year up. I think the other 4 options were consistent with fall 21 and fall 25. It does give us a little more projected enrollment numbers in Consol.
So
I'm sorry.
you go back to that. I think it's worth pointing out because we got some feedback in between the last meeting and this meeting. And it's partly feedback because I misunderstood what you guys said at the last meeting. That when you said grandfathering was not included in this, I took that as eighth graders were not included in this, not that all high school grandfathering was not taken into account. So I'm assuming that's exactly the way these numbers are right now. It counts no grandfathering at all, including current high school students. So for those of you in the audience, and when you get these options and take a look at them, when we make the decision to grandfather current high school students, the number in 1920 and 2021, this is my best, so tell me if I'm wrong. In 1920 and 2021, the numbers will likely be a little bit lower for Consol and a little bit higher for College Station. But the numbers from 2021 and on are all exactly the same, right? Because at that point, grandfathering will have been done, right? Which at the end of the day, what we really care about is what does this look like once grandfathering is finished? And so that once it's finished is 2021. So we fully recognize that in those first two columns, those numbers aren't going to look exactly like that, assuming we grandfather all current high schoolers, which I believe, I don't think we need to vote on it, but it's the plan.
We would be grandfathering the current 9th and 10th graders.
Current 9th and 10th graders, right? Anybody that's in high school right now is grandfathered. And those numbers will shift a little bit, but they don't shift an enormous amount. I mean, it's because you're talking about 2 years out. So you're talking about maybe 100 kids, 125 kids either direction, and then less than that in 2021. So just so we're all on the same playing field, because I was not when I left last week, because I misunderstood what you were saying, because I took it to mean something different. But we're all on the same page now.
Yes, and
Okay.
we would love to have a conversation once we get kind of narrowed down on a couple of the options moving forward. We can go and we can show you the impact of grandfathering as it's currently recommended, and then if the board wants to consider something that's less restrictive, what impact that could have, and we could have those conversations. I think that's what the board was alluding to at the beginning of the
Yes.
meeting last week.
Yes, and you, I went back and watched the video. You said everything perfectly well. I just heard one thing and assumed something different. So anyways, but I'm there now, so we're good.
And let me throw in here, just to make sure we avoid miscommunication. When you say current 9th and 10th graders, the reason you didn't say other students like juniors or seniors is because they will no longer be in school when these are technically effective. Is that accurate?
That is certainly our intent, sir, yes.
Okay,
To
thank you.
graduate all of them.
We're not moving juniors. Okay. Current juniors, thank you. Well, even though we technically haven't voted on that. Keep going.
Our middle school overlay for this particular option, you can see the splits. And of course, our last slide is our projected, what it would look like from a transportation standpoint. Many of these are similar to other options you've seen. It just encompasses all the different adjustments for this particular option, option 3B. Anderson has nothing new. You'd be providing routes to kids that are currently not eligible or walkable. So you have an net effect of 2 routes. Midtown, same here. Those are considered walkable neighborhoods now, so you'd have a net impact of 1. West Side, because we brought that boundary south to Copy Bridge, so it's not significantly dense, but we'd add 1 in here. You'll be careful because we refer to West Side when we capture Saddle Creek and those others and some other projections, so be careful to understand that's just down to Copy Bridge. That's why you see an adjustment of 1. And of course, the Indian Lakes adding a high school only route. So ultimately, we would project the net impact of being 5 additional routes, 20,000 a route or 100.
So far, has every option either been 4 or 5?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, so this line right here, I just want to make clear, this is Barron Road that is, it's, well, I know. I'm trying to figure out
I
how
can't,
to
and I'm
tell-
sitting next to
I'm
you.
trying to figure out, so where you have that yellow arrow going this way. You show me Barron Road on there, and then that's how we'll do this. There we go.
Right in front of CSHS.
Right. Okay, so do you see that small little street that's off of Barron Road right there? Is there a particular reason that, I look at that,
What road is that?
right where your cursor is? There's just,
Where the split is?
where
It's
the yellow.
capturing Springbrook area. So it,
Oriole down there? I can't remember the name of that street.
well, I don't know if it necessarily follows along a street as opposed to a planning parcel.
What is? Say again?
It might not necessarily be a street. It may be the back. It's a planning parcel. It's the back of someone's fence line.
It is fence lines, yes. Back here, so can you give that to me here?
In Shenandoah?
So, yes, so this is Alexandria right here. This is Mullins Loop that goes around this way. That's Mullins Loop that goes around that way. And so these are fence lines that go around there. And that goes down to Eagle Avenue to Victoria. So that's what that is right there.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So,
It does, thank you.
so that's Longmire right there.
Okay.
That's Alexandria right there. That is a fence line.
And then to
And
the,
that is an intact neighborhood.
okay, and then to the right of the fence line that you
Right
pointed
here?
out, that right there?
And that's, I want to say it's Oriole, but that's not what it is. It's, what? Cardinal, thank you. That's right there. Those homes have been there since the 90s, 80s.
Is it highly, I mean, would you consider that walkability at that point if you consider the other side? You see what I'm saying?
So what we have right now, that's a part of the same planning area. That's not, that hasn't been, and I can't make it any more magnified, but that little bit, I believe, is not part of another planning area. I think it's part of a larger planning area. So the demographer had to go in there and actually split it all out.
I see.
Now, there may be some reasons to do that later on in the process. Say, hey, what about this orphaned little street, or this is not really part of a neighborhood? Can we do that at that time? Sure, we can certainly consider that at the time, but right now, it's a part of that larger planning area.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Just a little bit about the construction or the theories behind this, other than it being a combination of 3 and 2A. This was not created necessarily with walkability in mind. We did try to reduce the overall numbers of midtown walkers, so that was something that was considered. One of the things that the administration looked at was a number of different types of neighborhoods and trying to balance those somewhat between the 2 high school zones. So we'll start up at the north. We know from the discussions that we've had that a lot of the multifamily housing already goes to A&M Consolidated. So when last time in 2016, when we did this particular area, and when we have considered this particular area off of Anderson, this time is a way to continue to split or get additional multifamily housing to College Station High School. So that's kind of some of the splitting we're trying to do between the 2 high school zones. You go all the way to the south, when you look at the larger estate lots, the 1 to 3 or even more acre lots that you have both in Indian Lakes and Nantucket over here, and you have at Saddle Creek and Duck Haven and Bitwood and Duskinny's Trace over here in this part of the area, this does split the larger estate lots between the 2 high school zones. Also, the more higher SES neighborhoods that are more dense, when you see over here at Pebble Creek on this side, and we have more of that with Castlegate over here, those are also split between the 2 zones. And what the administration was doing here is looking also for some, if we're not going to take the higher SES homes in the southern part of the district, is there a way to put more of a middle class homes into the A&M Consolidated High School zone? And that's kind of what we were looking at here. These are more of the middle class homes. We do realize that there are potentials to be walkers to College Station High School, but they are still in between College Station High School and A&M Consolidated. So that was kind of the thinking, is what is another way to bring some more middle class kiddos into the Consol zone. So that was kind of the thinking behind the creation of 3B here and bringing it to you today. Is it perfect? No. You can certainly look at the proportional numbers, and you can look at the forecast numbers in here as well. But just wanted to give you some of the thinking behind that. I'd love to answer any questions or hear your comment or share some others.
I was just thinking it might be handy to have somebody to point up there with. Thank you, Mr. Glenwinkle. Thoughts on 3B or questions?
I mean, to me, this has the same issues that 2A had, which is a good number of folks from that Midtown group. Obviously, it adds Margraves in there, which is a nice growth area, I think, as we look at things.
And we did try to split some current growth and future growth. That's one of the things I left out of there. Thank you for
Yep.
pointing that out.
No, absolutely.
Dr. Weston, are you still going?
I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. You go ahead.
I was going to say, I like where this is going. I like where this is headed. And that we're starting to look at some different things. I'm going to go back to sense of community, because I'm still having trouble understanding. If you're telling me that's a fence line, over there in Midtown, I struggle with that. I want to make sure that we're not disrupting that community, that village. I mean, I'm almost going to use the word village now, because y'all can laugh at me, but that's how I have to rely on my villages and to help me out. And I think that whenever you're dividing a fence line, but I mean, I do like where this is headed.
When you put it on a fence line, you're not putting it down the middle of the street.
Right,
And that's
I
what
understand
divides
that.
folks. So,
But you're dividing a neighborhood.
so actually, we're not. This is the Alexandria neighborhood. This is the Mullins Loop area that was built in the last, 10, 15 years. This is Shenandoah over here that is not being divided like it kind of was in the past. This is this is Eagle that goes down here. So this is Springbrook, and that one street that I was talking about, Creekside Circle, is right in here as well. Bridal Gate is over here,
Okay.
and this is Dove Crossing. And this over here is Westfield.
Okay.
What's that little street right below your cursor that looks like it cuts off that corner?
Like right here,
Yep.
Nightingale. It is, this would, I think, would be considered for a portion of Edelweiss, or Edelweiss Gardens, excuse me. It kind of does cross, and it is so hard to do since we can't drill down closer on this. But going here, there's a street, which names escapes me right now, that does cross Victoria and does loop around there. There's a park behind us. That's a park that we share with the city, and there's old creek that goes through there. So that probably could be considered part of Edelweiss Gardens. That might be one. If we wanted to go something closer to this, we could later on capture that
Refine
as a
it.
part of it. It is a little different than Westfield, which I think Plano is a street that comes out here towards Victoria, and then the other streets go out onto Graham right there. that's a fairly dense middle class area right there. So
I mean, that is, just to kind of put it into
Is that
perspective.
Eagle? I'm sorry, Mr.
No, go ahead.
this is
Yeah,
Eagle.
just,
Right?
yeah, is that, yes, that's Eagle.
This is Eagle. You know, one of them looked at Eagle all the way across and got this part of Edelweiss Gardens. Okay, this is basically all of Edelweiss Gardens stays in the same neighborhood with the exception of that little hook right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so dense that that's our smallest elementary zone area. Right?
Yes.
Am I speaking correctly?
Yes, there's one area that gets busing
Right.
to Creekview as it stands right now.
Right,
And
right,
we've got the new school coming in.
right. I know.
So, and so it did, this obviously did look at, you know, some densely populated areas as well as some of them more sparsely populated areas to the farther south. So I don't know that this is the best option. Maybe there's work to do on this. Maybe it's something that we don't want to do, but trying to figure out ways to split some various areas between the current high school zones was kind of our thinking.
I just want to say I appreciate the explanation in how the neighborhoods were chosen. I think I agree with Dr. Weston that I'm you know, the problem with 2A that I had, I'm still struggling with this. That, I mean, Eagle and Victoria right there again, it's a quarter mile. And again, then that may be something we just, I have to get over. I mean, I'm gonna have to get over something. I get it. But,
I know, but I'm
You don't have to today. I think
No,
the
no,
idea
not today,
here,
not
let's- I
today.
mean, let's figure out and push and pull and
Right, no,
see. I mean, so the question is, okay, if we take that as a problem with this option, what can we do to fix it? How do we go about replacing all or part of the Midtown notch? Is that the right group? With someone else who's not in the walk-a-bike area? Is that what we're asking?
I can also say that I have big issues with the Indian Lakes in Nantucket.
Meaning what?
The distance.
Oh.
If I do navigation where I live, like I did tonight, using Waze, it drives me right past College Station High School to get here tonight.
Yep. No,
It's definitely a negative.
yes.
that's
To get caught in College Station, for people in that area of town getting caught in College Station High School traffic, going to consolidate traffic, doesn't make sense to me at all.
I'm still gonna get burned. I just can't stop though. I've got to stop worrying about that. So I have to. I'm sorry. I do think we can do better on maintaining communities.
Let me pin you down a little bit on that. What do you
Fine.
mean? What in particular about this is causing
So
you
what
heartburn on the community issue?
So what bothers me is that the Midtown section is so densely populated. I mean, I used to live over there. That's where our first house was, and we walked to Creekville Elementary. It was a mile, but we did on nice days. You know, we walked, and I understand that whole thing. And that area is so dense, and they are currently walking or getting help. You know, that's really close. So I have a problem with separating that really close community, close neighborhoods that are also that close to College Station High School. And then I also have angst with Indian Lakes and Nantucket being moved out there. If that's what it takes, if that's the combination that it takes, I'm just wondering
Well-
if we could. Am I making any sense? Do I need to stop speaking?
Again, no,
into
you're
it?
good. It is, and
Okay.
I think as I look at it, let me think out loud in our sausage making process. Nobody think this is what I'm proposing.
Well, you know,
If I'm looking for numbers of students and thinking about community, and I remove the Midtown notch from this option, and I'm looking for people I mean, naturally where you look is Castlegate. And as you start going over there, you start looking at your numbers, and Castlegate itself is a pretty large community. What do you do then? Do you add part of Castlegate to finish out your numbers? It adds to the community of continuity of Indian Lakes, Nantucket, and Castlegate, who've been together for a long time. I'm thinking out loud here.
Right, and that's kind of where my thought's going too. I mean, I think that's a good idea, but I'm also wondering about the west side, if you can keep all of the west side together.
I think
I'm
so.
proposing a whole
No.
new map.
No, I got you. And that'd be a different map. And
Right, a whole new map.
I think this is probably a good time. I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning. It seems to me we've gravitated away from kind of the option 1 approach and the option 3 approach and are more in the 2A, 2B, although this is 3B, where you either go down the east side or the west side and figure out
What it would take.
what those look like.
Can I ask a question of your community? Like when you're talking about that in there, are you talking anything south of Graham? Is that what you're thinking?
South of Graham, south of Graham, south
See
of
the
Graham.
Graham up there? I mean, is that what you're?
Yeah,
I
that,
mean, at some point, there's a ton of communities in that
right.
middle section.
Right.
Include, I mean, we could go up
Where's Graham?
Edelweiss.
Sorry, Graham right there.
I just kind of want to know what your sense of community is over there in that neighborhood. What you're thinking.
I'm thinking that you have to be very careful with separating those neighborhoods. I mean, there's
Okay, but what dividing? I'm gonna make
No,
you
that's
say
fine.
what dividing line is
what
that
dividing
for you?
line is that for me? I don't know roads. I don't remember roads, but I would like to make sure that all of Edelweiss Gardens stays together. All of Dove Crossing. I do want all of Duck Haven to stay together too. Dove Crossing, all of those. But I just have a problem splitting that whole section up, to be completely honest with you.
So you're talking about you consider Dove Crossing and Edelweiss Gardens and is it Springbrook? Is that what you're talking about?
Bridal Gate.
You in Bridal Gate. You think that's all one community? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe not Bridal Gate, because I drove that and they are a little further out there. People are gonna not be happy with me.
Well,
Um,
it doesn't. Yeah,
I
you
know,
just have to,
I
like,
know,
I know.
I
I just want
know.
to see what.
Working
what
through it. It's okay.
no, they're not happy now. So.
But the Bridal Gate
I was
is.
gonna say.
I know.
know, so just-
Bridal Gate is like right in the middle. They could go either direction, and I really don't think that Bridal Gate's gonna walk.
Okay, so you're talking Springbrook, Dove Crossing, and Edelweiss. That's a community to you, like
Mm-hmm.
having lived over there. Okay.
And then Shenandoah, I don't think you can split up Shenandoah, and it doesn't. I'm still not understanding this one for sure, but it seems like this one is not splitting up Shenandoah. But that's like a big one for me. I mean, I've been to some of their little festivals that they throw. I don't even go to that neighborhood, and I'm not even in that neighborhood, and I've been to some of those. They actually throw neighborhood festivals. So the idea of separating, and I'm just trying to stick with the feedback. I'm trying to honor that along with doing what we're trying to do.
Oh, you're doing fine.
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Harris, there is one of the ones that the board asked for last time that I think might be good to explore now, and it gets at some of the things that have been brought up about looking at some other neighborhoods. Would it be the will of the board to look at that at this
I
point?
believe it would be the will of the board.
Please.
Lord, please.
Proceed.
Yeah, I'll get these.
This would be 4?
3C.
No, this is
D.
horribly named.
What is this name?
That's how long it is. You'll see here in a second. So, we tried to be descriptive in exactly what we were doing here, and Mr. Martindale will take us through it here in just a second. But just to start us off, this is basically starting with option 2B.
Oh my God.
And it's actually worse than this. We're adding in what we're calling East Welborn Road, that's Tuscany Trace, and those folks, and Sendera and Bentwood, and all the way up to Creek Meadows, but taking away everything, all the walkers from Midtown. So you see that in front of you on the screen now and that first map. So Mike, you want to give
Dr.
a
Eagley, real quick, as you do this, when you were talking earlier about, there were certain areas where students were already on a bus, that does not include, you're going to go back and do that. When we first started earlier, you said there was,
In the north.
north.
Yes, that was something that I just came
That's
up
not
with
in this.
just tonight. Yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no, and yeah, all of that still looks very similar to before.
This one basically switches your midtown, which Ms. Nolan, you've been speaking of. So it removes any adjustment in midtown. And then pulls in the east side of Wellborn Road, Tuscany Trace, Bentwood, Hidden Springs, as well as Creek Meadows, which is located here. So you're in essence doing flip-flop from Midtown for further out on the southwestern side, on the eastern side of Wellborn Road. Does that make sense? There's Greensboro.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So all of this, he's saying all of this would be zoned to consol, obviously, with the blue, the western side of Wellborn also, this collective area. Is your percentages on comparability 5.1? Your possible bond for classroom addition to College Station High School, fall of 21. Grabbing those or being able to utilize that space fall 24, and high school 3 bond possibly projected fall of 25. That's very comparable to the other projections. Your middle school splits, again, you can see the middle school boundaries are the bold green. The high schools are the color coded. The blue is Consol, the green College Station High School. And here are the splits associated with this particular option. And projected transportation. Anderson Road, we've seen before, what we call west side, which is Saddle Creek and those areas. We've seen before that stays consistent with other options. The Creek Meadows, East Wellborn area, we have 2 5 through 12 routes that serve that now. So we would need to add a high school only, a 9 through 12 route. So this would, again, collectively be a net add of 5 or a projected 100,000. So that's, as Mr. Harris mentioned previously, they're all 4 to 5 range as far as projected routes.
One question on that. So last week when we talked, on the south side, the Indian Lakes and the Nantucket, we're adding a route just for high school regardless of what we do, right? No? Okay, okay.
Right. The one added growth that we projected for 2019 was with this west side particular area, which is where I have this net, three high school, a net we would anticipate regardless. So, or excuse me, 1, so that's where I get the net.
So it's the west side that was going to have one
Correct.
regardless of
Yes,
which way
sir.
we did. Okay,
That's where
okay.
it was coming from, because of this area is just so geographically large.
Okay, I knew there was one.
They start running together on me, Mr. Schaefer.
Okay, so you looked at the balance on this, I have to go back, 3B. You balance neighborhoods back and forth. Do you feel like you got the balance on this as well, or?
Yes, if you look at it, kind of start at the top's the same as we talked about last time. The larger estate homes in the southern part of the district, again, are split between two. We do have the larger, more dense, higher SES neighborhoods still in two different zones. And kind of what you're trading for is I mean, the difference is largely, I mean, these two areas obviously are exchanged for each other. When I say these, I apologize. Indian Lakes, Nantucket versus the west side, pretty much flip-flop for each other. But the trade from what you saw in 3B is the walkers that you have up here in between College Station and Consol, for these other kiddos who are already residing down south, just on the other side of Welborn Road, plus that fairly dense neighborhood in Creek Meadows. That's the trade, basically.
Thank you.
I think I would still like to inject on this one, the Margraves property. If,
Let me add a question. Whether it's Margraves or somebody described to me this new Brewster land, Brewster with Castlegate 2, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big area that's just getting ready to get built out.
It's 30 acres. It's
Oh, it's not a lot of houses.
No, sir.
Okay, all right,
No,
we're
sir.
good. I've never seen that.
That-
Okay,
There are a number of lots, but a majority of that number is, probably comprised of Castlegate 2. But it is, you can enter, actually, Castlegate 2, the back end of it, you can actually enter into Brewster's Point.
so let me rephrase the question then. What if this was the option? Where's our growth coming from for Consol in this option, right? In the first option, we could look at it and we're going to put all that growth and faith in that Margraves area, which has clearly not been developed yet, but big hopes, we understand. Are there neighborhoods or communities on this west side plan that we expect big growth from, other than, I have to go back to the look, Meadow, Mission Ranch, right, obviously, but
So you can look at some of
Right.
those in here. So we're looking at currently growing areas and future growing areas. We're moving some currently growing areas, which is Creek Meadows right here. We're adding in on the south side of Greens Parade Trail, a number of homes that are going in there right now. We're adding more to, this is Saddle Creek down here. They're adding some down there as well. There is the possibility, I mean, the future of we'll see some growth here south of Greens Prairie. It's not anything that has been identified at this point, but I think they're in discussions with both the county about some future growth here. We have not identified that, or I don't think
it's not in the plans at all, right?
So, yes, we still do have Mission Ranch, which is adjacent to the elementary school that we're building right here, that we think will be bringing in some future growth as well as out here in Southern Point, which is the racetrack.
how much of a role would Margraves, if Margraves was in Consol as a growth, what would that, is that significant on this?
So,
that
if you want to go back and look at last week's, you can kind of see it on the first few years. It's not significant, but it's got some pretty big numbers there as you get into the out year. So when you do these types of analyses right here, when you add in Margraves, when you get into 2025, 2026, 2027, that's when you see the numbers really bump up. So it bumps it up in the out years wherever you put that development, either in College Station or Consol.
There's your sheet for Margraves right there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I mean, I guess I need to go along with my theme with the community. I do like that it takes all of that side, because we did get quite a few emails in saying just simply, and I kind of group this into the sense of community, is I would like to remain with my friends. Which, I mean, most of the emails said just don't move me. But well, I get it.
Yep.
We don't want to, but we have to. But I'm hopeful that this would allow those neighborhoods, because we had some neighborhoods and emails, saying, for the neighborhoods across Welborn, saying I'd like to remain with these friends. I mean, I know it's just a couple emails, but
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
maybe that.
You're saying this group right here and this group right here and these, is that what you're saying?
We got some emails that were they said they lived in Creek Meadows and they had friends in Saddle Creek that, they didn't want to be moved from. I mean, that's everybody. Nobody wants to be moved. Everyone wants to remain with their friends. I shouldn't have said it. Just
Can you
thinking out
highlight,
loud.
Wilburn Road on that one, on that map?
Okay, so
see it at the
Welborn
bottom.
Road goes right down there. Sorry, too much coffee today, everyone.
When you have to hold a laser pointer from a long distance, it's
Hard to, yeah.
You know what? This also, those kids, so someone, wrote in, a couple people said something about the triangle, right? So these guys are zoned for so K through 8, they are zoned for schools that are basically in their backyard. They're right there. So then that last, just the high school, would be a little bit further. But K through 8, they're going to schools that are right there. Am I wrong?
No,
no, you're
that's
right.
correct.
Okay.
The advantage of building all those schools right down there.
Right. I thought it was crazy, but maybe there's,
No, no, reason.
What are the negatives?
Well, I got to ask Mr. Schaefer, because we did that north-south, and you pointed out in the last map that you have to go past Indian Lakes, Pebble Creek, Williams Creek, and Nantucket will all have to go past one school to go to another school. We have that on that same thing. Do you have a suggestion?
That was one
That
of the
we
reasons I was asking where Welborn Road goes in. A lot of the neighborhoods on the west side are getting on Welborn Road regardless of which high school they go.
So if you're in this neighborhood right here or down here, yes, you have to get on Welborn Road. You can't get over here. There's no way to get over this way. You've got to get on Welborn Road, go north, even if you wanted to get over to Highway 6. Yeah. Greens Prairie Trail, and then Greens Prairie is your first route.
Wait, why are they going down Greens Prairie Trail there?
I think Mr. Schaefer's point was these neighborhoods down here can't get over to Highway 6. There's
Oh, okay.
no way east-west through here. You have to get going north on Welborn 2154. If you want to go east, your first opportunity is here. And then, of course, you can go down Barron over this way as well, or 40.
What is that, the bottom part of that yellow just to the left of Welborn Road? That's currently yellow in that map.
Right here?
But no, kind of like as you
Dowling?
go up right at Dowling, just north of South Dowling Road. What is all that in that area right there?
So this is Aspen Heights multifamily for Texas A&M. This is Capstone Road. So this is
these are not houses, they're
There are some,
mostly multifamily, which is why we kind of have that long strip right there, because that's generally all low SES kids for the most part.
so that is, if you look right there, Capstone is not, but we have two different multifamily manufactured housing parks right there off of North Dowling on either side, right there, either side of Rock Prairie Road. And this is, was that the barracks? So that's collegiate housing right there, and just connects us up to, because there's not very much here just in there. That's mainly farmland, city land, and then you get up to Luther Street and Southgate Village and some others, multifamily up in here as well.
I was gonna say that Capstone, they have larger lots out there. There's not probably a lot of housing. Um, Just,
It's just not a lot of kids either way.
well, there may be some
not very
kids in there, but there's probably just not a lot because
Not that many lots.
they're 2 to 5 acre lots in there.
All right, I'm going to talk through my themes. All right, here I go. Sense of community. We're taking a big group and trying to keep a big group together. Walkability. We're not messing with walkability. The SES balance. We have seen plans that are better. We definitely have seen plans that are better. But this one stays within the,
Yeah, not a whole lot better.
right, not a whole lot better, but we have seen better.
I don't think we've never been presented an option that doesn't, for the most part, meet.
Right,
That meet the criteria, I think, of what we're looking for
right.
historically. I mean, some will do a percentage or two better, but
Commute and bus routes. Let's tackle this.
yeah, it's, I mean, I think the same argument you'd
It's 5.
make for Indian Lakes is the same argument you'd make for putting all them on a bus too. I mean,
Right.
it's,
Again, I think I'd like to see not just miles, but, you know, actual bus time.
So I did some of that. Do I dare bring this up? Here I go.
Here she goes. She's got it. And what time did you drive this stuff?
Gonna hide. This is key. I did not do it at 8 a.m. and I did not do it at 3 p.m. I didn't. I did it at 9. I did it around 9, and I did drive 9 a.m. Yes, 9 a.m. And
Kinda
I'm
schedule you.
going to tell how creepy I am right now. So I went to the farthest part I could go in Saddle Creek, and I stopped my car, and I did Google Map it. I didn't drive it. I Google Mapped it, and from back there to go to CSHS from there at 9 a.m., Google Maps told me 11 minutes. And then to Consol, it told me 17 minutes. So I'm just putting it all out on the table. So it does add 6 minutes to their drive time, and that is twice a day. I recognize that.
and we did get a couple of emails from people who live out down there talking about how there might be some more lights. There should be
Right.
some more lights added over a period of time. So that's, I just want to,
Right.
let's make sure that we're hearing from everybody in terms of the feedback we've gotten. So that's 6 minutes that could be increasing a little bit over time. So there you go. I'll let you finish on the other side,
Yeah.
which I'll be interested to see.
Which part? The Creek Meadows?
Just keep going. You're
So I did the Creek Meadows, and I did Creek Meadows this one was at 3 p.m. I drove Creek Meadows at 3 p.m., so I had to go past the elementary traffic, and I mapped it on Google, and Google told me CSHS was 7 minutes, and Consol was 14 minutes. Then I drove it, and it took me 7 minutes to get to Consol. I will admit, I did not drive to CSHS from there once I got there from 7, and I did catch every light. I did not get stopped. Full disclosure, I did not get stopped, but it only took me 7 minutes. I should have done it again because I didn't, and I was just trying, I mean, you guys, I have a list. all over town. I didn't just do this. I did it everywhere. I know, I'm crazy.
What are you going to do with your time when we're done with this?
Maybe
All awesome.
take care of my family.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, that. I take this very seriously. So yes, we do, but I mean, I do have to say we do have a section of our community that has been driving. You know, I mean, I've got to mention Pebble Creek has been doing this, and Peach Creek Crossing,
Williams Creek.
Williams Creek. It's not like we're asking a whole new set of. It's not like we're all of a sudden asking for something new.
Do you know what your longest route was? Okay, can you get that to me?
It was Saddle Creek. Did you see my notes?
Mm-mm.
I did not. It was Saddle Creek.
Which, was it the one you mentioned that was
That was the longest one you had.
16, 17 minutes?
17 minutes. According to
And
Google Maps.
did
But
you
keep
drive?
in mind, that's a straight car ride. That's not a bus
Yes,
route.
this is true.
So we're talking car rides.
Yes,
Right.
So
we are talking car rides.
before we start getting emails saying bus rides a lot longer than that, which
Right.
is we recognize that. That's I understand.
Did you do anything from the Indian Lakes, Nantucket area?
Yes,
See, I'm just curious how that compared to the Saddle Creek.
yes, I did. However, with Indian Lakes, I did not go to the very back of the neighborhood in Indian Lakes. With Indian Lakes, I was at the entrance to their neighborhood. And I then found out, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm not consistent. I'll
Okay, well,
admit it.
but okay, that's
It's a
fine.
long way down there.
Yeah, it's a
For
long way
some of
back
those
in there.
houses,
It's a
it's a
long
It is a
way
long
down
way.
there. And from the entrance, it was 16 minutes
What's the last road in Indian Lakes?
16
I'll do it
minutes
real
to
quick.
Consol.
to Consol.
Front,
I have
front.
That would be
Oh.
longer if you're the farther you are back in Indian Lakes, you're adding to that drive.
This is true. Oh,
How did you go?
How did I go? Down.
And I guess what I'm asking is, what's the status of
Oh,
the,
Mesa Verde?
and
It's-
is the other one Cherokee? Is that?
They're not done.
I know the
I don't think
counties,
Cherokee's gonna be done for a year or two.
Mesa
But the
Verde is
Mesa Verde's
imminent.
getting very close.
Yeah.
Mesa Verde is
This
very
month,
close.
maybe.
and are they doing some overpass work? I thought I heard something. Am I mistaken?
No, I think they're both gonna, Mesa Verde's coming right across from the Texas World Speedway, so it's gonna have overpass, and then Cherokee you're gonna have to go south.
So they are gonna, at some point, have access to SIG. I mean, again, just so we're making sure, I mean, I don't want anybody to say that we didn't give everything a full analysis. I mean, it looks like that will dump out to 6, so they could go up 6 and not have to go through what may be the single worst intersection in this town, which is right there at
Arrington.
Arrington and
40.
that.
Okay, but you think, okay, so I want to know, because I don't, that Mesa Verde is going to go, it will have a place to go across, or will they have to go flip
Okay,
around?
It will go across.
It'll go across, and then you'll have a place to go.
To get on 6 now, that is if you're going straight to the high school. If you're going to elementary schools, you're still gonna, or the middle schools, you're still gonna be driving down Arrington Road.
Right.
Gotcha.
Or or if you go the other way, it's gonna make it longer, actually longer.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I think if you go up and go
Think about
west.
that triangle.
So the Mesa Verde will make it worse if you're going to multiple schools than what they have now.
Okay.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
they're
you.
going to Pecan Trail, Welborn.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Which, for the record, Arrington Road is having 2 sets of construction. One by Mills Creek right there by Blue Baker to Fitch. They're working on that right now. And then the county's going to start from Old Arrington to Nantucket. And they're going to start, they're taking, I think, bids right now for that section of Arrington Road.
Do you know what the cross section is? Is it 3 lanes? Is it 4 lanes? Okay, thank you.
I
And
spoke
they're,
too
and they're
much.
currently, and so we have full disclosure, they're currently working on Welborn and adding, I want everyone to know that we're concerned, they have lights and that they are working on Welborn as well at this
From
time.
that new HEB. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, even further south too, you know,
But there is a new HEB
There
too,
is a new HEB.
and a turn lane and a light.
No, no.
Right.
Should we get someone with the city that does the traffic? Can we, again, I mean, I'm new, so I don't know how this, I mean, can we get a consultant from the city to talk to us about the roads and what we're, everyone's silent now.
Well, I think it depends what you mean. If we can have our staff communicate, and you stop me if I'm wrong, with city staff, absolutely, we can, and I'm guessing should get their thoughts on this. If you're talking about us spending money and hiring a traffic consultant, I don't think we're there quite yet.
No, I just meant consulting with the city.
Okay,
No, I just
then
wanted
yes.
to consult with the
That's what I
city.
thought you meant, but
Yeah.
We can certainly make inquiries, and I don't know what their timeline is, but we can certainly start making those phone calls tomorrow. You know, when we had a boundary adjustment committee in years past, we usually had somebody from planning and development services or traffic on it, and it was very helpful. Of course, now this is the boundary adjustment committee, so
I
we'll have to
think
go back and get those resources another way.
it'd be good to ask them about, we need a better name than option 2B plus Creek Meadows / East Welborn Road.
We're our
And-
consulting firm to help us with that.
3B, yeah, we'll do that. And just ask, I mean, it's the dumping out either to Welborn and going up or dumping out to 6 and going up. Agree to be good to get input?
I wholeheartedly agree.
What other questions on 3B? I'm sorry,
I just want to make sure that,
option 2B plus Creek Meadows / East Welborn Road.
so there's Creek Meadows and there's Creek Meadows Estates.
Yes.
And does that encompass both of those or?
What we have there is Creek Meadows and Creek Meadows Estates, which basically is for both sides, both north and south of Greens Prairie Trail.
Okay.
What is the, in the yellow zone, just to the east of the line? Is that Wood Lake?
Okay, so you're looking up here?
Yes, sir.
So this is Wood Lake, that's Sweetwater, that's
Okay.
Sweetwater 2, this is Welborn Oaks right here. And then, of course, this is Castle Gate 2. So not as many lots coming out of Wood Lake, it's not growing. Either Sweetwater, Sweetwater 2, or Welborn Oaks. Mr. Harris, as I look at the time, we're getting close to 7 p.m. There were two other things that the board asked us to look at last week. Both of those were basically, as you pointed out earlier in the meeting, were both variations of option one, where most of the people from down in the southern part, southwestern part of the district were going to Consol, and then added other neighborhoods to them.
I think these are the things I asked for, maybe.
Yes, they're the ones that you asked for, correct?
I don't really have a strong need to go through those after, again, our discussions and where everybody is. I mean, I'm looking to solve the problems, and I, quite frankly, like both options you've talked about tonight better than what I anticipate either one of those being. So, I mean, that's where I am. I'm certain if somebody wants to go through them, I mean, we can do it, but I think we know what those problems are and what they'll be, and it's basically the same sets of issues that we've talked about with each of these. But again, I'm happy to have them go through, but I really, after reflecting on it, after what we talked about, I don't really see that it's going to be very fruitful. But any objection to foregoing that? I think I would much rather spend time talking about these and trying to move forward, hashing on these and seeing maybe if we can't, if any refinement can be done to make it better.
So I have one note from 3B, which was see if we can do something to replace all or part of that Midtown Notch
Notch.
Walker group, yes.
If you can find a way to do it. I mean, because I mean, I don't want to have to go back and pull that up again, but in 3B, you know, we got rid of that run all the way down Highway 6. I guess the question would be, is there, you know, I hate to take out a neighborhood that can just go straight down Barron Road to high school, but maybe I'm assuming that Tower Point area, we're not planning on anything in those apartments, and
We get a few kids from the townhomes that are down here, but not, and those are included in there, so.
okay.
What about,
I mean, I just don't, if you're going to get rid of those walkers and you're going to stay down to the east side, that means you're going to have to take Castlegate with it. The original.
And probably end up splitting it up, and then you're splitting a neighborhood and you're running into the community problem. But maybe he can come up with something good.
We,
Do you have it? He already has it.
no.
Oh.
No, we don't.
Oh, no, I thought he did. Off the way he looked, I was like,
We're not being
I know,
coy.
I know.
This is what we got.
how many students do we have on, what is this, 3B?
That
I'm looking at
Midtown
3B.
notch is the 150, about 150,
Well,
is according to the first part of our presentation.
yeah, it's right here. This,
So that,
No, that's
I
not
hate
what I'm
calling it a notch because it sounds derogatory. That's not what we mean. But that irregularly shaped rectangle.
I called it the
Shape.
Tetris piece earlier.
No.
Yeah.
They were the farthest away from College Station High School, was kind of what
Yeah.
the thinking was.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm actually going to ask about 3B is how many students live in this area that's on the west side, the Copy Bridge to the current line? How many students are in that? I am looking at
60.
east side, west side,
I want
right?
to say it was 60 kids, if I remember from a prior one.
Because I mean,
We're-
That's River Run.
This is River Place that's out here.
place. And do we have any development going in there?
This,
we know of?
this right here?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is 1,500 acres of lots of trees
Okay.
with no access to sewer. So
Okay, so I'm wondering if, while you're looking at what Dr. Wesson was asking, if we look at removing that as well, replacing that as well, so we kind of, I am leaning towards one side or the other. Am I crazy?
So, okay, so this, I think it's the Chance track out here, that is, I think, 1,500 acres, and it has no access to sewer. They'd have to build a plant. That is not,
If
Anything
you go
that's
back
in
and look at the 3B that he presented originally, and I understand I'm pointing to something that the audience can't see, but it already still includes that area that's blue right there. Is that what you're talking
But
about?
I'm wondering if we don't include that area in blue.
well, it's
Oh.
not going to change the numbers because he
In
doesn't,
3B?
there's nothing
If
else.
anything, it lowers it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Makes our
wait,
numbers worse.
you will have to go back.
Right.
and look.
I
lowers
think,
the
I don't want, I
console
want to
by-
say it's not that many kids, but
Right,
I wanna
I'm
say
wondering if
60?
we
Was it
have
like
to
50 or
change
60?
that area.
it's not even that much. Okay.
Well,
Change it, leave it at CSHS.
We can look at it, Ms. Nolan. It's not a real dense populated area, and and again, we'll check it to make sure, but I think it will probably send our projections the opposite direction. as to where
Right,
we're going,
right.
But we
But
can
I'm wondering if we can
absolutely look.
offset that, because if it's so few, do we really need to rezone them? I know I'm getting into some murky water. Right. That's why I'm wanting,
and one thing I know we talked about it, but let's really focus on,
Mr. Harris, I'm sorry, I'm really confused, so. can
Okay,
you
sorry.
Exactly what you want, I want to make sure.
Okay,
we
sorry, go
clarify
ahead.
this.
yes,
So which plan are we
Take
talking
them-
about? Are we
talking
talking
about
about 3B?
3B.
Okay.
take that area, the area that is now blue, go back up to the original line.
Okay.
So basically just taking River Place out.
Okay.
If I'm understanding.
Thank you.
she's looking at this one and talking about taking that out. On the numbers on 3B, we've had angst over the bond to expand CSHS. That plan does actually accelerate by 1 year. I know we mentioned it. High school number 3. And that closes the gap between those two bond offerings by a year. Just pointing it out.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
As usual, lots of good information, gentlemen.
Yep. And we are at 2 minutes till. We had kind of talked about doing these in 2-hour sessions so everyone can stay reasonably fresh and with us.
Question for clarification. I'm not hearing anything on the, what's up there now, 2B plus Creek Meadows and East Welborn Road.
Name.
I don't know.
I would
don't
like
know.
you to find a better name. That's,
Done. Thank you.
thank you.
And why don't you, like Mr. Schaefer started to suggest it. It's going to look like a weird triangle once you do that, but see what those numbers look like when you throw Margraves in there.
With A&M Consolidated High School, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
And then also the other change that you were talking about earlier today. The low SES.
Yeah, well, whatever you make a difference in the low SES group, though, it's gonna be the same in either one of the two options, right? So
I'm
if
sorry,
you
I missed
change
that last part.
if you change the Anderson Street to a
Oh,
different multifamily housing, it's not going to change our growth numbers in either direction unless you pick an area that's much larger or much smaller, which I assume that you're not going to do at this point. But
It's a smaller area, so that would just throw some numbers off, and we'll have to look at the comparability of what that does. So.
right, absolutely.
Okay, are we good?
I think so.
On,
I think we have what
we're
we need to
good.
do for next time. We do need to talk, Mr. Harris, about the next meeting we have scheduled is if we're going to do this at the regular workshop meeting a week from tomorrow, Tuesday the 17th. And then I'm not sure we have any dates after that, do we?
not that I know of.
Mr. Schaefer, you said one that wasn't available that was going to be available.
I have April 19th on the
That's what I
calendar.
have.
We have April 19th? Okay.
On my calendar, I have it down, so I don't.
Does April 19th or April 26th work for you?
19th would be. Can we meet earlier that day?
What time? You mean from like we did the 3 o'clock deal?
I like that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine for me. I
Yep.
don't care.
Anybody cannot do that?
I can make it work.
Oh, yeah, you have to pick up, don't you? Sorry about that.
I can
You're
I
good.
find you a sitter. I find you a sitter.
You say earlier, you're talking 3
Most
o'clock?
likely.
On the
19th, Thursday, then April 19th.
So I think it's good to confirm. So we are talking about this at our next full board meeting, or we have enough stuff on there to where this doesn't need to be discussed at the full board meeting and the workshop, I should say.
At the workshop, yes. Well, the executive committee is meeting on Wednesday to set the agenda for that. And right now, we've got 3 things on there, subject to other things being added. Cabinet's meeting tomorrow to talk about what might need to be on there. So there may be something I missed. Do we need, I guess where you're going is, do we need to talk about it on the 17th and then again on the 19th?
Well, either way, I just think that if we're going to make up if we make a decision that we're going to talk about it on the 17th, I think it needs to get out there to everybody that that's going to happen on the 17th. If we're not, then everybody can just know that the next rezoning meeting is not going to happen until the 19th.
I think we'll know that Wednesday.
Well, here's the
Okay.
other thing that we probably could ask here, though, is if we needed to, because of the agenda and the regular business of educating children, could we meet earlier that day? I mean, is that something that you would consider or that we could ask?
Earlier which day?
I'm sorry, on the 17th for a workshop?
Talking about going 3 to 5 on the 17th, and then 5 to 7, and then 7 to whatever.
Well, no, I wasn't really talking that early,
We weren't
but
talking.
I was thinking more like if we started
Or?
If there was a 4 or 4:30 time, or, if we could,
If we
I
could
guess the
just
executive committee,
Adjust it.
yes, could we think about that? Or I guess the administration would need to talk with the cabinet about that, and then,
Yeah, I think we need to visit about that. I guess if we're going to meet on the 19th, if we're going to meet on the 17th and the 19th, if you direct the administration to have something for the next meeting, it's going to be kind of tough to get stuff back. So like this map that you see here, we don't produce that. Templeton Demographics does that. They can do the better maps than we can do. So
I do not mind skipping it on the 17th, I'll tell you that. So
I do think we need to be clear with I agree that we need to be clear with the community. If we're not going to talk about it
then
at
we're
the
not going to talk
workshop,
about
then, yeah.
it. Sure.
I think that's right. We do need to be clear. But I think we ought to, I mean, are you saying you don't want to talk about it on the
I'm saying
17th?
I don't ever want to talk about it, but I don't
Great.
care. I mean, I guess if the point is, no matter what we do on the 17th can't be turned around on the 19th, then I would say let's not bother talking on the 17th. Let's just talk on the 19th. Unless you're talking about taking the 19th off the board.
Why don't we, I mean, I think we have a good handle on the issue. They can maybe talk to the demographer and say, hey, if we have a tweak or two, what's our turnaround time? And then that way, when we're actually setting the agenda on the 11th, we can make that call and then everybody will know.
That works for me just fine.
Can I ask about April 26th?
You can.
How's that look for everybody? If memory serves me correctly, Mr. Schaefer, that is now available for you. And I believe it was available for everybody else.
I have it on my calendar, so.
Have it online.
What time?
It is not for Mr. Williams.
What time?
We did,
5 for that one?
5 is what I was
Yeah, but
thinking.
Quinn can't be there.
Oh,
He's in Chile or something. I was,
Let's leave it, why don't we leave it on the calendar for right now, and then we'll decide on the 19th.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to do is think, once per week, if we can try to have something on the schedule, and not knowing when we'll be able to wrap this up. So,
You want to send out another doodle poll? I know you love those.
I could certainly do
Doodle
that.
poll, Google poll, whatever that we want to call them.
I like it.
But now that we're closer to that time, people might know what they can and can't do a little bit better.
Is it the will of the board? Send out another poll, try to find another date, maybe that, for that week of the 23rd? Okay. I will do so.
I cannot on the 24th.
I can't do the 24th either, so. Leave. I'm not the president. You do whatever you're going to do.
what?
Anything else that you're going to need from the administration?
Not that I know of. Anybody else see anything we need between now and our next gathering?
Just make sure we talk to the city also.
Okay, and with that, we are adjourned.